Well, wasn't that bound to happen? Before we get into the pissing match that happened after, let's take a look at what happened leading up to it. Welcome back, guys. Today we're looking at all the events that happened over the 2021 British Grand Prix. Let's jump right into it. Coming into the race weekend, after Red Bull dominated the triple header, the F1 circus comes back to the hallowed grounds of Silverstone for the British Grand Prix. So much jam-packed into a few days, with the unveil of the 2022 car and sprint qualifying format being used for the first of 3 attempts this season. Full capacity was also hit for the Grand Prix weekend, and was great to see and hear. How would Lewis and Mercedes answer after being run out of Austria by Max? How would the teams do with only one practice to set up for qualifying? And what implications would the sprint have on the Sunday race? Let's find out. Jumping right into FP1, the sellout crowd was in full effect to watch the 3 British drivers and others go full bore to get ready as they could for the qualifying of the sprint. Max was the fastest by quite a margin over Lando and Lewis, with the expected struggling Ferraris not far behind. On the qualifying for the first time since 2003, it gets started on a Friday. The teams will only be using the softs across all sessions, as teams will have tire choice for the sprint and race. Q1 saw the AlphaTauri of Yuki Tsunoda eliminated, as both team cars struggled for pace this weekend. In Q2, Russell puts in a mega lap to get into Q3 again, knocking out the 2 Alpines and Gasly. In Q3, Russell got to be wheeled on by the crowd for his lap, which was a cool sight. The Q3 times weren't as fast as the Q2 laps, as Lewis wins the first place for the sprint with a 126.134 over Max and Valtteri, with the Ferrari of Leclerc in 4th. Perez was 5th, who had his final time deleted, followed by the 2 McLarens of Lando, Danny, then George, Carlos, and Vettel. So now it's Saturday. FP2, I guess you could call it a warm-up for the sprint, because I think the cars were under parc fermé, so really just to see how the cars would run on heavy fuel and see how the cars would react on the tires. Verstappen went on to set the pace in first, with the Ferraris, again Leclerc and Sainz, 2nd and 3rd. So fast forward a few hours to the sprint. With most of the field opting for the medium tires to make the run for pole, there were a few gamblers attempting to run the softer tires for the 17-lap run, Valtteri being the first. Lights out. Brundle's here talking about his F1 career again, so you remember him, and away we go. Max gets the jump on Lewis and takes the lead heading into 1, defending hard the rest of the first lap. Also on the first lap, George runs wide into Carlos, sending him down the order to stage a great recovery, as well as Maceman spinning off his Haas teammate, young Schumacher. Alonso on the softs puts on a show, getting all the way up to 5th before finishing a great 7th. On lap 5, Sergio goes around and through the traps, keeping it out of the wall, but I'm sure not without damage, as he would later retire. Because of it being an all-out sprint, the mediums saw some extensive wear and blistering, to many of the team's surprise. Max goes on to win the sprint and the pole, ahead of Lewis and Valtteri, followed by Leclerc and the McLaren duo of Lando and Danny Ric. Points were awarded as well to the top 3, with the big loser here being Sergio, who, with changes to the wing and other parts, has to start from the pit lane. It was a pretty exciting race, and George Russell would be hit with a 3-place grid penalty for his contact with Carlos later on. Alright, it's Sunday, it's race day, and it's hot. Nico Rosberg pushing his clean, bullshit-ass lifestyle just to one-up his former teammate on Grand Prix Sunday, and we get way more Jensen Button than you can handle, but no soda cookies. Again, all the teams are given tire choice, with most, if not all, starting on the mediums, eliminating the 11th on back advantage of the usual weekend. Lights out again, and away we go for what is set to be pure insanity. Both Max and Lewis get away well, side by side, with Max holding through 1 and Leclerc getting ahead of Bottas. Hamilton nearly gets ahead going into Brooklands, but Max holds the inside and Lewis sets up again. He gets a good slipstream down the old pit straight into Copse as Lewis dives down the inside, makes contact as he is a little above the apex, and Max turns in. Well, into the ensuing pissing match between the two teams on whose fault it was later, but Max is sent into the barriers with the right side of the car at, as said to be 51 Gs. He gets out, seems shaken, but okay, and is later sent to the local hospital just to make sure. After a lengthy red flag to fix the barriers and remove the written-off Red Bull, we get another standing start with the teams allowed to make changes, including Hamilton. Leclerc now assumes the lead and gets away well from Lewis and holds serve. Norris gets ahead of Bottas as well, going into third, and Vettel spins around, gassing up too early on the inside of Fred into the old pit lane as Lewis is simultaneously given a 10-second penalty, which I will get into later. Starting on 15, Leclerc experiences the first of many hiccups with his Ferrari power unit. Key point as pit stops are underway. Lando comes in on lap 22 with a slow stop, dropping him behind Bottas. Hamilton, after his stop, would come out right behind Lando, and on 31 gets by. Sainz also had a slow stop, dropping him behind Ricciardo, but the Ferrari crew gave Leclerc a clean pit stop and out with some fresh tires. Lap 40, Valtteri, it's James, and is ordered to let Lewis by so he can be on his way. On 47, after another stop and being stuck in the DRS train, Perez and Raikkonen made contact, with Kimi going around. As the last few laps tick away, Hamilton, clearly with a pace advantage on the hards, reduces the gap by chunks a lap. On lap 50, Hamilton is there and sends it on the inside of Copse again, with Leclerc getting snap steer on the exit, who, if not for that, would have held the lead maybe a little bit longer, but was not meant to be as the Mercedes was just too much for the Ferrari. Lewis goes on to win, but Sergio Perez steals the fastest lap away on the final lap, giving up his own point to take away a point from Lewis. Leclerc is second, with Bottas completing the podium. The two McLarens of Lando and Ricciardo are fourth and fifth, followed by Sainz, Alonso, impressive eighth for Lance Stroll, Ocon and Tsunoda rounding out the points. Standings really tighten up as Max only has an 8-point lead over Lewis, with Norris in third, Bottas up to fourth ahead of Perez, and the two Ferrari drivers. Constructors now only sees Red Bull up by 4 over Mercedes, with McLaren holding 15 over Ferrari. The midfield battle spices up, with Alpine joining the AlphaTauri and Aston Martin battle, with only 9 points separating them. So, on to what I think, and the social media outrage, and all the other good shit that happened in the meantime. What do I think of the new car? Well, it was only a prototype, but I think the team's rendering and ideas of what it could be leave for some pretty endless possibilities. The only gripe I have about it, I think, are the wheel covers. I also realized that the ride height will probably be a little bit lower. I think the rear wing is fucking awesome, and just the idea of ground effects back in the sport are really fucking awesome. Like, back to the fan car again. Let's see some of that shit. I think the weekend format wasn't terrible for a first try. I think it was pretty awesome. That was probably as good as you could ask for. The 17-lap sprint, you know, those guys wore out the mediums in 17 laps, so I'd say they were going for it pretty good. It just needs a little tweaks. The whole practice and FP2 thing was a little I'd rather see the 2 practices. It'd be tough to do it all in one day, but the idea of qualifying on Friday was pretty cool, and seeing the sprint on Saturday, really just what Ross was talking about, given an everyday experience to a sellout crowd. The tire choice thing, though, I actually kind of like that Q2 rule. I think it should still happen, because all you're doing is just causing a DRS train now. You know, you have the fastest guys in the sprint pretty much lining up on Sunday right where they were, and the second lap 3 comes, everyone's going to be stuck except, you know, Sergio, who started last, and he was the one who got hit hardest by this. So I think guys on, you know, worn tires starting up front would be good. The other idea is, too, you know, like, have the feature race on Saturday and then reverse the grid, kind of like another series, on Sunday, and let's see the fast cars come through the field. Wouldn't you love that? Give some guys like George maybe a chance to score some points, because clearly, every time he gets up there, he can't do it. Also, how about that Ferrari pace? I don't think anyone expected them to be not just battling for the win, but, you know, up ahead of McLaren, where everyone thought they would probably have the advantage over them. So it was good to see them up there battling. They clearly have figured something out since Austria, so it's not just a car that can run well on the street circuits and be, you know, really tight, twisty stuff. Just good to see them, you know, up battling again, and hopefully good things for next year, and, you know, less heartbreak like this weekend. All right, now that we got the veggies out of the way, it's time for the meat and potatoes. The Hamilton-Verstappen clash. What do I think about it? Well, I definitely chalk this up as a racing incident, but a penalty is deserved. I don't want to call it a suicide attempt, but I definitely see this as some desperation here, and not in a bad way, because if I were Lewis, I'd probably do the same thing. This is his home Grand Prix. This is a season on the line. This is the Red Bull just driving off into the distance like he has so many years. That was the one chance to get ahead, control the race, He had to make it. The problem is, as you saw in other races this year, when Max goes into the first corner, Lewis is giving him room. Lewis has backed off or gotten knocked out of the way. Lewis tried doing that this time. Max stood his ground. It was inevitable. The whole season, these guys have been leading to this, and I wouldn't be surprised if it happens again. It just happened to be at one of the fastest corners and led to some pretty big carnage. As for the penalty, I really think it should have been a 10-second stop and go. 10 seconds added to his pit stop, that just was bullshit. And the fact that the red flag was out, allowing him to, really change some stuff and keep him in the race and, even keep position at the time before the stop. It just allowed him to kind of maybe make a gap. The one car that could have beat him was now, a total write-off. So to catch a boat-anchored Ferrari, it was inevitable. I'm surprised it took that long. And the fact that the Ferrari was able to keep pace on the mediums, but just not enough on the hards, that speaks for itself and, who was driving the 16. The team outrage and during the red flag and all the stuff with Christian after, I get it. He's upset. That's your driver. That's your star. It was just a little overdone. It's typical him, the back and forth between them. I don't think they should be playing the radio messages with Massey. That's starting to get a little, pussy shit. But, hey, if they can throw it on there, you eat that shit up. I'm also pretty damn tired of hearing about the race stuff after it was over. There's no reason to bring race into this. There's no reason to be calling people these names. I didn't even really realize it after, but it doesn't surprise me now with all the shit that's been going on. It's just getting overdrawn. We're getting to see the title fight we want. Shit's like this is going to happen, Did we really bring race into it in 2016 when they wrecked at the Spanish Grand Prix? I don't think so. But then again, I wasn't really paying attention, and social media wasn't the total dumpster fire it is now. I think we should all just learn to appreciate what's going on now. Racing incidents happen, regardless of your white or black. But I don't want to bring that into this. So, looking forward to the rest of the year, what kind of repercussions is this going to have on Red Bull? Pretty much having a useless chassis now with the cost cap and all that. How good is that new car going to be? I'm pretty sure the Red Bull guys will get it right by the time we get to Hungary. And just hopefully we continue to have a title battle for the rest of the year. So, that's a bit of a review of the British Grand Prix and what I think about after that. Give this video a like, comment, share, subscribe. Check out my other videos and my retro game reviews. And, if you're like Creed and want to have your mind blown, check them out too. So, until next time, have a good weekend. I'll see you in Hungary. Been the Game Bro, and I'm out.